Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're going to learn about the matrix, not the movie, the table that we use in computer science and mathematics to store content and basically create a ton of stuff like video games, board games, tables for programs like Excel for an example and stuff like that. So basically, what is a matrix? Matrix is a table of information with rows and columns. We're going to look on the first and most basic matrix, the two-dimensional matrix. So let's jump to the code and see what I'm talking about. Okay. Let's start. We're talking about the for loop in Python. So a for loop is basically kind of a neat trick that helps us not repeat our code. Because if I want to print a value of something, like if I have a random number, let's call it x equal to 0, and I want to print the value of x. Pretty simple, but if I want to print it 5 times, I won't go and write it 5 times, right? It will be tedious and annoying. So to solve this, we have something called a for loop. I want to run 5 times on a loop, so I will get so I can print my value 5 times instead of writing it. So for I in some range of numbers, so I'll call range, which is a Python function and give us a range from 0 through to n minus 1, which n is the value that I give it. So if I'll give it 6, it will go from 0 up to 5. So let's see what's up. And if I'll print it, you will see that x will just be printed 5 times. In this case, 6 times. I wrote 6, makes sense. So what's the point of that I though? If I go inside of it and I'll print that, you can see that I is basically an iterator. Every loop, the value increase by 1. And that's the fundamental for creating a matrix, because it will give us the amount of rows inside that matrix. So instead of I would like to say row, because I like to write code that is meaningful to me, and row makes more sense to me than just writing the I. So see that if I change the name of I, nothing changed in the code itself. So this is a for loop, and the next thing I want to talk about is nested for loop. Basically, to create a matrix, we need rows and we need columns. In every column, we want to have every row we're gonna pass to the next one and to the next ones until we finish our matrix. So instead of printing the row value here, I'm gonna put another for loop, and I'll go and say for range of 6. Now I have a nested for loop. Basically, with every iteration of row, column will go the full circle before row will increase by 1. Let's see that example. Inside of the column function, the column for loop, I'm going to print the value of col, and outside of it, I'm going to print the value of row. So we can see what happens inside. You can see that with every iteration, the value of col will start 0 through 5, and then 0, 0. That extra 0 is our value of row right here. The problem with it we have now is that the print function in Python always adds \n to the end of whatever we put inside of it. So every time I print something, it goes to the next line. And I don't want it because I want to print something in a row. Every row, I want to insert the number of columns. So in the column section, I don't want it to move to the next row. So I change the \n with end and I add empty space to it. Let's print it. And now we have this nice matrix looking object print. But I don't really want that extra line here. So what I'll do, I'll just remove the value row from it. And now we can see that we have a matrix that just repeats the line. But now let's see the functionality of that beautiful thing we call a matrix. We can use the values to create something like an addition table. So I would like to add to the value of my column the value of my row. So with every iteration, I'll get different values. Now you can see that the first line is the same as it was because the value of row stays 0. But with every iteration, it starts with a bigger and bigger number, basically giving us an addition table. Now, if I would like to create a multiplication table, I will do almost the same thing. The problem with multiplication table, it says 0 is a value that literally zeros everything in multiplication, so we don't want it. So how do I do it? The problem is that range gives us 0 through 6, but we want to change that. To change that, we need to change the value of the first value of range, and Python makes it very easy for us to do that. We just change the first value of 1, and then leave the value at 6, and then print, and see we get a multiplication table. Now we get a multiplication table. Thank you and have a great week.